Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, where we promise not to solve your problems, but hey, at least we'll keep you entertained while you avoid them. It's another episode.
That's right. That's right.
I feel like anytime I'm listening to a podcast, like my productivity levels just go down because I get so caught up in like the conversation. I feel like I'm just a part of it. Especially like the Nate Land podcast. Like
I could listen for hours. I normally don't listen. I listen to all of them like batched together. I don't go weekly normally.
Yeah.
And so like I'll end up listening to like 8 hours in a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to those guys so bad whenever I'm listening. I'm like, oh, I've got something to say on that topic.
I know. That's the problem. Like, I'm just like, I got something funny to say right there.
Yeah.
It's, has there been any new stuff that you've been listening to?
Right now I'm listening to, it's not necessarily new because I listen to both of these people sporadically, but I haven't a lot lately. There's a conversation between Tim Ross and Ruslan KD on the Basement podcast that is a must listen.
Yeah.
Just 3 hours, and when those two guys get together, it is absolute magic.
Yeah.
I love the way that they think, the way that they talk, their kind of views on Christians and Christianity and the church and the world. They're just real open, honest. I could listen to those two guys together. I wish they did something together more than just popping on each other's show every once in a while.
Yeah.
I would listen to that weekly for sure. So I've been into that. I'm always listening to my Dolphins podcast with Travis Wingfield. Listen to that like 4 or 5 times a week. Just even though it's a bad season, I know I'm wearing the jersey or the hoodie today. And I had a breakfast meeting, and twice people were making fun of me. People I don't even know. I was like, guys, it's been a rough enough season without you making fun of the Dolphins. So I still listen to that a lot.
What do you think about your quarterback not wearing his protective helmet?
I think that he probably should. I don't know why he's choosing not to. I actually haven't gone and listened to the press conference, but I know that came up. I've seen some like tweets and stuff about it or something. I don't know why he wouldn't. I mean, it was kind of shocking that he was coming back in the first place, and I know there's a lot of people like second guessing the Dolphins organization for it and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I did hear the sound clip where he's like, "Listen, I will play this game till I'm dead." Like, it means that much to me. I think that's a silly thing given the fact that you have a family. But
yeah,
if you will help us win a Super Bowl, okay. No, just kidding.
And then whenever we induct you, you'll just be drooling.
Yeah, you're gonna be like the new Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to have all these problems from getting hit so many times. And it's going to be incredibly – I joke about it, but it'll be incredibly tragic. Like,
yeah.
I assume he got all the information he needed to make the best decision possible, and it's not my decision to make. But, man, that was a crazy situation. But, yeah, people were giving me a hard time today over my Dolphins sweatshirt. I was like, man, they're 2-4, and they've played horrible, so – maybe give me a break. It's been bad enough.
Did you make fun of them for wearing their WVU stuff?
No, the one guy said he was a Bills fan. I was like, oh, man, that's – we can't beat the – I don't think – like if the best team in the NFL put on Dolphins jerseys, they still wouldn't be able to beat the Bills on that day.
Yeah.
We are just – I don't know what it is. We turn into a different team whenever we see the Bills on the other side of the field.
Yeah.
It sucks. Being a Dolphins fan, a WVU fan, and a Michigan fan is not very fun right now.
Michigan did all right.
They're terrible. Well, they won the national championship last year, and somehow
saying.
they are terrible this year.
Yeah.
They don't have a single quarterback on the roster that can throw a pass.
Yeah.
I don't even know how the defending national champs don't have a quarterback on the roster that is any good. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
No clue. But it's actually all three of them have struggled. All three of my teams have struggled because they don't have quarterbacks.
Yep.
And it stinks.
Yeah, it does stink, but it's your teams.
Hey, they won the national championship last year. It was fun,
and it's too expensive to buy other clothes. So.
Well, I don't like that business of being a bandwagon and just jumping on whoever's.
Yeah.
It's like all the Yankees are in the World Series again this year, so now they're going to have a whole new load of bandwagon. I've always been a Yankees fan. Really, dude? You're from Charleston, West Virginia. What would make you a Yankees fan?
Yeah.
No reason to be a Yankees fan unless you're a bandwagon Yankees fan. Come and suffer with the rest of us that like the Cubs and the Reds and the Pirates.
Yeah.
Been relevant in 30 years.
Yeah.
Well, Cubs won a championship in 16. I always thought, getting one World Series would make, all the year. It's like, no. It's been since 2016. Now we're 8 years now. Still nothing. And it sucks to be a Cubs fan again. We had, 2 good years. I don't know how these other teams, they get decades of quality baseball, always a chance at we got 2 years. Yeah. We had 2 years, and then that whole team disbanded. I don't know.
They couldn't afford them.
Yeah, it stinks. I don't know how these other teams do it, but all the teams, I'm telling you, I felt bad this past weekend. Tennessee was beating Alabama, and I do not like Alabama, and I've always loved Tennessee. So I've got family that goes there, and so I go to Tennessee a lot. I love Tennessee. And so when I turned that on, I saw they were winning. I don't live and die with Tennessee like I do my other teams, but I'm like, all right, cool, man. And then as soon as I started watching the game and they were up and it was in the fourth quarter, I was like, oh, no. The football gods know that I'm watching this game and rooting for Tennessee.
Dude, that's how I feel.
It's inevitable that Tennessee's now going to lose. I almost turned the game off.
Yeah.
Because I was like, listen, here's what you have to know about me. If I cheer for you and I'm actively watching, you will play horrible.
Dude.
That's what's going to happen.
That's how I feel. Anytime I watch, San Antonio Spurs or Texas A&M, I'm going, why am I even watching? I'm jinxing them.
Yeah,
I'm the problem. Even putting my eyes on this.
I feel like Taylor Swift. I'm the problem. It's me, for sure. Seriously, the one weekend, West Virginia stomped a mud hole in Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Yeah,
we were at a baseball tournament. I could not watch that game.
Yeah,
my assistant coaches just keep giving me updates. Oh man, this score. We're just pounding them. The next 2 weekends, I'm sitting at home, nothing to do, right in front of my TV to watch Iowa State and K-State, and they just get massacred twice. At home. They beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Just destroyed them when I'm not watching. I'm watching, and boom.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Jacksonville game for the Dolphins to open the season. They won that game. Every other game I've watched got destroyed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's me. I'm the problem.
It's I don't even want to watch the game that we have this weekend because it's number 8 LSU versus number 14 Texas A&M. Yeah. And we're the only 2 undefeated teams left in the SEC. And so I'm like, dude, if I watch this,
you're going to lose.
I'm going to lose. Even though we're favored. Analysts are saying A&M's favored because they're playing at Kyle Field. They're playing, and
get that 12th man going. I feel like my TV set is – connected to the teams, and someone in the
Scotty B's watching.
Someone in the locker room goes, "Hey, we just want you to know, Beja's television is on, so it's time to play like garbage."
Yeah. Have you ever had the thought go through your mind that God's telling you, hey, you're spending too much time caught up with sports?
Here you go. This is how we're gonna break you. We're gonna make you a fan of all the worst franchises ever.
Yeah.
So we're going to break you just like that. I'm like, well, what would happen if I just turned on the TV and started rooting for the Patriots? Could I just destroy them?
Yeah.
Because that would be awesome. I'm just going to become a Mahomes fan. Next thing you know, Kansas City is going to be irrelevant.
That ain't happening.
I don't know. I would put my bad luck up against his talent. I'll tell you that much. I put my bad luck up against it right now. Let's go KC. Watch them. They'll lose this Sunday because I said that.
Dude, if they do, Whenever we talk next week.
Well, all right. Who do you want me to say next? You want me to say go LSU? I'm rooting for the Tigers this weekend. You're welcome, A&M.
I appreciate you. Hey, you know what, dude? Thanks, bub. You got my back.
That's what I'm going to start doing. Instead of rooting for my own teams, I'm going to root for teams of my friends that they want to lose. And I'll just go, all right, man, this week I'm an Alabama fan. I always want them to lose.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we're picking up on our conversation on effective communicating. And this week we're going to be talking about some of the mistakes that communicators make. Some of the stuff that I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but some things that have been given to me to become a better communicator, because we have a high accountability culture here. We have a high constructive criticism because everybody wants everybody to succeed here. And so we do talk about things that we have little mishaps on, and we do celebrate the great things that people are doing. And so these are some things that have been brought to my attention.
Some of them I pulled from other places, but and we do this not to criticize other people's teaching, but it's an effective teaching strategy to talk about what not to do. Because sometimes that's the best teacher in life, is to just see what other people do and go, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that. That really applies to any area of life. There was a lot that I learned in life by watching what other people did, and me going, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I'm going to learn from their mistake. I don't want to do that. So that's kind of what this is. I'm not going to give any specific names or instances or anything. But also like
the good things too. Like you learned how to be a great father from your dad. Yeah. Who was a great role model, and just a great person to learn from. The same thing for me. I have a great father, and I'm still learning stuff from him to this day. And so you find the things that are good, and you find the things that are not so good. But so the first thing that I wanted to talk and bring up was the fact that people bring too much content to their speeches. If you overload somebody with so much stuff, you can't fully comprehend, can't fully process.
Yeah. If you want to know why TED Talks are so powerful for people, is 17 minutes. Yeah. Is I think the mark that they're shooting for.
I think that's like the longest one.
Yeah, and they have even shorter ones too.
Yeah.
That's what's going like. What you will see is I'm going to be talking about communication in general, but I'll give some specifics about preaching since that's kind of my very specific lane. This is the mistake that you will see the vast majority of preachers make. And truthfully, I probably make this mistake more regularly than I would like to, just because it's so difficult to get away from this. Because somewhere along the way, we have decided that the more things that we say, the more that we give somebody, the more effective that we are. And what I would say, what I've learned in communication is to be an effective communicator, especially if you're a preacher, it requires much less content and a whole lot more self-control to be effective. Truth be told, it's very easy to write a 7-point sermon. If I want to give you 7 things, it's very easy to do that. Mm-hmm. I could go to any passage in the scripture right now and probably give you 7 things that you could walk away from it with. The problem is your average, let's say that you're preaching for 30 to 40 minutes. My guess is the vast majority of people that are doing that are teaching from notes, which means that whatever those 7 things, 5 things, even 3 things that you're trying to communicate to your audience are, you don't even have memorized, and you've been the one studying it all week long.
Yeah.
So you've been studying it all week long to understand these 3, 5, 7, however many points. You've been studying all week long, and you still need notes in the pulpit so the way you can talk about those 3, 5, 7 points. And yet you think the people sitting in the church listening to you for 30 to 40 minutes are going to remember all the stuff that you never remembered throughout the week as you were studying.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing to think, right? It's when you hear it, you go, Yeah, I'm up here with notes because I didn't memorize it. But yet I think that they're going to walk away and go to work tomorrow and go, oh, let me tell you all 7 things that my pastor gave me yesterday. They're not going to. They might write them down, but they're not going to be able to remember them, and it's not going to hit home. So
I know this is like a completely different context, but it's why, like, whenever you go and watch a movie and it's like one of those like almost like life-changing movies, people have to go back and watch it again. Like I like my favorite movie is The Lord of the Rings, like that trilogy. And there's still stuff that I'm still taking away from it. Like I said, it's completely different context. Like there's like, even if you were to have,
I'm
like,
still
all
confused
those
by
notes,
those movies, and I've seen them dozens of times because there's so many different things going on, so many characters, and it is kind of this, similar to what I'm saying. Like these folks that are like, you know, a lot of us were raised up in seminaries, and it's like, here's what you do. It's 3 points every Sunday. It's a 3-point sermon. You go, the problem is if you didn't memorize all 3 of those points before you got into the pulpit, as evidenced by the fact that you're preaching from notes, then how is that person in the audience who is way less versed in what you're talking about supposed to walk away with 3 things?
Yeah,
they just can't do that, and it's sort of an ignorant proposition for you, if you're the communicator, to think that they're going to walk away with that. Rather, what effective communicators do is they realize that the key to getting anything across to an audience happens by having one thing that you need to say to them. Mm-hmm. One thing. Now, again, if you're teaching in a classroom or in a conference that, like, you're kind of workshopping stuff, this may be a little bit different. But even at the end of the day, I think if you want to be an effective communicator, whether this is in a conversation, in a sermon, in an email, or whatever, if you want to make sure that what that one thing is gets across, you have to get very, very, very clear on what that thing is and then hammer it home from every possible direction.
Yeah.
Rather than giving them 7 things, give them one thing, because that is something. First off, if you will give them one thing, you have a better chance at not needing to walk up there with 8 pages of notes, because you're only going to try to give them one thing.
Yeah.
And then you have a better chance for them to receive it, hear it, remember it, and go to work the next day and go, hey, here's the one thing that I learned at church yesterday. That's much more portable to have one thing. That's going to stick with people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a mistake, even though we think, man, isn't it cool? I've got 7 points. Like, I saw 7 different things in this text. And sometimes, like, pastors will want to do sermons like that because they think, I want to show my church just how clever I am. I can come up with 7 S words from this passage.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be the alliteration. It's like, no, listen. Here's what I stopped doing in preaching a long time ago. I probably still have a ways to go, but my prayer around my preaching is always, I don't really care if I impress people. I'm much more interested in actually giving them something that helps. So
I think if you look at some of this stuff, even some of the sermons that I've been a part of since I've been here for 4.5 years, you look at the ones that really, really, really do bring about life change, and like, you hammer home, like you said, this one single idea. Thing. I look at the Long Live the King series or sermon that you did.
Yep.
I look at this Don't Stop and Settle.
Yep.
You know, like, I can go through a list of all of these things, but if you, in each one of those different sermons that you had, then I wouldn't be able to give you those notes. I wouldn't be able to give you those points.
You know how impactful this is, and like, I've taught this to people for years, and I've practiced it as much as I possibly can. Practice it, but like, it really hit home that what I had been taught and what the type of communication that I was an advocate for, how effective it was. I got invited to go speak at a service called Give Him Praise, which is a local recovery service, and I went and I preached Don't Stop and Settle. Which is a sermon God gave me from Genesis 11, and I've preached it like 4 different places now. I've preached it twice here, but I preached that sermon at Give Him Praise. It went well. People responded to the message and all that, and I thought, all right, cool. Well, it landed. I hope that it does what it's supposed to do. I go back to that same service a year later. I've had no contact with these people in a year. As soon as I walk in, the guy that's in charge of that service says, hey, I just want you to know, I still remember to not stop and settle from the last time you were here.
Yeah.
Do you think that guy would have done, if I gave them 7 things, 7 keys to a brand new life, you think he's going to remember those 7 things? No. He's not going to.
No.
So you are not ready to go and communicate until you can say what it is that you need to say with one statement. Right? This is what happened 2 weeks ago. I'm preaching from 1 Samuel 24. I read the passage on a Monday, and I saw a statement as I was scrolling social media that went right along with it, and it said, the depth, I can tell the depth that the gospel message has penetrated your heart by how you treat those who have done you wrong.
Yeah.
I saw that, I read the story, and I go, that's exactly what's going on here. That's the one statement. That's what I'm going to drive home. Like this week. This week, I was reading the passage, and as I'm reading the passage, I'm going, okay, asking God, and he goes, look what's going on with David. And it became clear it was, do not give up wanting to do the right thing or what God's called you to do just because your enemy will not stop attacking you. Right? I could take you all over the place in that text and probably show you all sorts of different things. Like even all the commentaries that I was reading didn't help me very much in the sermon prep process because they were all wanting to talk about how David was acting in a wise manner, how David was, it was all this different stuff. I was like, okay, I could have gone and gave you 5 points about decision making.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot better to give you the one thing that the Lord laid on my heart. And so every week, all I'm trying to do is to distill the message down to one sentence. That way, when you walk out of here, you know without a shadow of a doubt, this is that one thing that God wanted me to know, that the pastor articulated. I can remember it. It sticks with me. I can tell it to other people. And when I'm having a bad day, I'm not sitting here trying to remember 7 keys to how to not have a bad day. I've got one simple statement in my mind to go, don't stop doing the right thing just because the enemy won't stop attacking you. I can, look, here I am. I have no notes, and I just told you what my whole sermon is going to be. And so I don't feel any pressure to get up in the pulpit Sunday with a whole mess load of notes that's going to disconnect me from my audience, because I know as long as I communicate that one thing, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Is make sure they walk away with that. So that is one of the biggest mistakes, especially if you're a preacher. Listen, Sunday comes every 7 days.
Yep.
So if you have a 3-part or a 3-point sermon, perhaps you have a 3-part sermon series. And you can actually take your time and drive down and drill down deeper on the one thing each week.
Yeah.
Save some for next Sunday. Mm-hmm. Sunday comes every 7 days.
Yeah.
If you spend it all on 1 week, then you're just trying to recreate the wheel every single week. And the problem is you're actually doing that. You're doing that difficult work for very little return. Right? If you're going through if you're trying to do a 7-point sermon, alliteration, where every word starts with S, because that's what pastors do for some reason, you're going to spend all that time wordsmithing that, researching that, all for those people to forget all of those S words by the time they get done at the Mexican restaurant Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
That's a crazy proposition that you could probably go deeper on one thing, spend less time in study, and be a more effective communicator that helps your God's word transform people's life, rather than just trying to give them a bunch of information that makes you look like an expert because you have 7 words that start with S.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy mistake to fall into, because I'll tell you right now, it's easier to preach for an hour than it is to preach for 25 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so hard to get people. I try to coach people here, listen, you need to be shorter. You need to be shorter, because it's lazy to preach for 45 minutes. If you have to cut the fat to get the one thing across down to 25 minutes, that's the hard work of communication. That's why when we do these little devotionals, I said 3 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes. How am I supposed to intro, tension, text, resolution in 3 minutes? I don't know. That's the hard work of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But people don't want to hear you ramble on for 7 minutes in a morning devo. It will take a lot less content to teach how I'm talking about, but way more self-control. It means like when I'm going through a passage and I don't know if I'm talking about peace for that week, but maybe there's a point to be made in there that has to do with something that has nothing to do with peace. It means I might make note of that and go, all right, well, the next time I teach this passage, I'm going to know that that's there. I might go there next time, but I can't go there this time. Because even though it will make me sound smart that I could point that out in the text, and I'll give you a second point about this, it's ultimately not serving the one thing, so therefore we get off task, and I become less effective with the more content that I try to throw at 1 week. Save it for next Sunday. Do yourself a favor. I promise people will resonate more with your teaching.
Now, let me ask you this. What about the you do a good job of pointing this out too whenever you come across it. If you feel like you're doing a study in the New Testament, and people like to take scripture and just kind of misuse it.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the best examples that you ever did is because Jesus is talking about relationships.
Yep.
And then right in the middle of it, it says, give and it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, and all this other stuff. And people take that and they apply money to it.
Yep.
Whenever they read that. Every single pastor in America has done that.
Yeah.
There's not a single person that hasn't preached that.
And it's totally lazy. This is the
and then right after that, they go back. Jesus goes right back into the relationships.
Thing. And you go, is he a crazy person? Of course he's not. Of course he's not. Of course that passage has. This is the second mistake I want to point out is, and this will be specific to preachers, but you can probably find application in other ways that I'll try to draw out, and that's to misuse the text. So yeah, that's a great point. Like I've seen people go to Philippians 4:13 more times than I can count to preach about how you can do anything that Christ, anything because Christ is in you. And I go, you do know that's not what that passage is about.
Yeah, it's funny because like one of the baddest dudes on the planet, he's an MMA fighter and he's got that tattooed like right across his chest, and he's like, whenever he does some of his post interviews, he's always like, I like to thank God, because I could do all things through him who I'm like, does God really care that you're getting in a cage and beating the snot out of somebody?
Yeah, it's like, I don't think that's not what that so I see that. I see people being really lazy in divorcing like common passages from their context to make it say whatever they want it to say.
Yeah.
I see that. It really bothers me. I see also... Like I ended up with this issue a little bit last week, and I'll give some context here. Sunday night, I was teaching about digging deeper, about our For the Future campaign. And I used a passage from 1 Kings chapter 3 that all the oldest versions of the text all say that God told them to go and dig ditches to have the water filled up. Well, somewhere along biblical translation streams, that changed from you go dig ditches to and I will fill this valley with trenches and water, to where it was like, okay, only God's going to do it. And so what lazy people would do is go, I'm just going to take this or this. And what I did was wrestle all week long with, okay, God, you led me to this passage. I don't know that it technically says what I thought it originally said, because here I have the newer translations are saying this, the older translations are saying this. The newer translations are actually more reliable for those people that don't actually know that, because they're working off of better and earlier manuscripts than what they had at the King James Version and different things like that. And so I'm at this impasse, and I go, all right, so I'm going to sit there and wrestle with that in a way where most people just go, no, I'm just going to go use it. Who cares? I wanted to get to the bottom of it so I could go in my heart. I think that it's a biblical idea that you have to, that God will do what he's going to do, but you also have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
I think that's a biblical idea, right? So I didn't have any issue preaching that, but I wanted to do enough study there to make sure I wasn't going to misuse that passage for my own selfish purposes of trying to get people to give to our campaign.
Yeah.
Because I see people manipulate text for purposes like that, and I go, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So a manipulation of the text or divorcing it from its context for your own purposes are really bad.
Yeah, terrible.
It's brutal. Another way people misuse the text, and it kind of goes along with that, is something called proof texting, which is another reason why I think having 3-point, 5-point, 7-point sermons is a mistake. Is most of the time what you get is a proof text, meaning I'm going to give you 3 points. I'm going to give you 3 passages that I rip out of their context to prove my 3 points. Because for them, the point is the points instead of the text. For me, whenever I'm giving you the one thing, I want to highlight the power of the text by showing you the one thing in the text. So this is what they'll do. They'll go, here's number 1. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And they'll go, Philippians 4:13 tells you this, that you can do all. So they go and they rip that verse out of context. And you go, but that's not what that verse means. That verse is about living content. And then they'll be, all right, here's the second thing that you need to do. You need to pray, whatever. And they'll go and they'll find a passage on prayer. No matter what that passage, whatever the context is, they will just rip that one thing, put it over here.
If my people.
Yeah, if my people, it's everyone. If my people are called, and you go, that was specifically to Israel in that time period. It has nothing to do with America. Do you know that? I just got to make sure that you know that. Right, so they'll just take that and they'll proof text it to go, and it's like when you do that, you can make the Bible say anything that you want it to say.
100%.
All you're doing is you're just going to take a portion of that passage and use it because you want to make this point. All you're trying to do is find one verse that will stand up with that. But it's like, yeah, but if you put that up against the rest of the scriptures, how does it hold up? It doesn't at all, which is why I've transitioned us here to try to preaching more through books of the Bible so you can't proof text it. I can't just pop into a story, use it for my purposes, look clever, and walk away. It's like, no. You should not abuse God's word like that. So you see people proof texting, which is a really bad habit to get into. And then this is a kind of a newer irritation for me. I don't know if that's the right word. It's not like irritation, but like a newer thing that like I get when I see it, I'm like, I don't like that because I saw it recently. And that's if there's a passage of Scripture that is meant to be positive in nature, and so many preachers are just totally bent on being negative at all times because they think that's what preaching is just pounding the nail over and over. Like the worse people feel when they leave, the better you did your job. Yeah. Like that sort of preaching, although I think that there's clearly a place for making people face what's true about them and hearing hard truths. Mm-hmm. There's no issue with that. But if you use a verse that's meant to be positive in nature and spin it to be negative, then that is a major problem. Like I heard someone recently, like they were using this verse about how God has richly blessed people for their enjoyment. And it's like, that's a good thing. Yeah. Like, God has clearly called us towards generosity, all that, but that's not what that passage says. That passage says, God has blessed you for you to enjoy what he has given you. And I heard this pastor take that and he goes, here's what's going on in that passage. God has given you everything that you have. I go, okay, yes, amen. So that means you need to give more. I go, pause. Biblical principle of generosity all throughout Scripture. Is that what that verse means? No. You just took a very positive, life-giving verse about how, man, God has blessed you to enjoy what God has blessed you with, and you turned it into a giving talk rather than a blessing talk. You made God look like an idiot in that moment to go, oh, he gave you all that for your enjoyment, but what that really means is you better give more money to the church. Like, if your point, here's the deal, if your point was give more money to the church, there are verses that you can find that will support that. Yeah. That wasn't the verse. No, so if the verse is positive, let it be positive, build people up.
Well, but it also gives, and this is something else that I wanted to talk about, was it makes the word of God confusing.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not.
Why would you confuse people?
He gave you all these things for your enjoyment. And you go, you know what that passage means? Well, it sounds like God has blessed me for my own blessing. No, it means you need to give more. I go, oh gosh, maybe I don't even know anything about the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, it's so confusing. It's like, no, it's not confusing. It was a positive verse, and you should have used it in a positive manner. And if you meant to talk about giving or tithing, you should have gone to those passages.
Like it's just given, it shall be given.
Like, it's just a misuse of the text. And I'm like, it's so, don't do that to the Word of God. There are, if you need a strong message that's going to get in people's faces, there are verses for that. And if God is leading you to uplift people and to bless people and to encourage them, there are verses for that.
Yeah.
But don't soften the ones that are meant to be sharp, and don't sharpen the ones that are meant to be soft. Use the text in the right way. Be faithful to it. And a lot of it comes from you just didn't do enough work to find out what the text actually meant.
Yeah.
Like, for me to go and use that story about digging ditches, I spent, and that was a really short talk, like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I spent an unbelievable amount of time researching that because I did not want to misuse the text.
Yeah.
I'm that serious about it. When I see someone misuse the text, it may sound bad. I kind of write them off as a speaker. If I see you misuse a text, I go, you are probably a great guy, maybe a good pastor, but I'm not going to listen to you teach. Mm-hmm. And it worries me that you might be sending people in a weird direction if you're going to misuse that text that obviously without doing the hard work to go, that's what this really means.
Yeah.
So that would be the second mistake people make, is they do have a tendency to misuse the text.
Yeah. And one of the things that you do, I think you've probably done this, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, and we can go back to the other points, but I think that this will help set up for the other two. But one of the things that you do that is just incredible in my eyes, and I think a lot of people appreciate it, is you talk openly about vulnerabilities that you have, insecurities that you may have. Yeah. You've talked a lot about anxiety that you deal with, and just being open and honest about what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
I think that it just makes, for me, it makes you so relatable, because I deal with the same things too. I have insecurities. Yeah. I deal with all kinds of stuff. But just you being open and honest about those things that you're dealing with, but also like how God is bringing you through those things and how He's working on you and changing you. It's beyond me that some people would look down on that.
Yeah, this is one of those deals. When I was coming up in seminary and early on in ministry, it was probably worse than it was when I was coming up. In the older times of the church, but like there's this sense in which the pastor is never supposed to show the slightest weakness or chink in his armor whatsoever. And we would hear this, we would read about it in seminary. I would have older pastors like caution me against, like, hey, like, you don't want to show that sort of, like, these people need to be able to fully, like, and it's like, I just don't buy into that. Mm-hmm. I think that if the vessel that's carrying a message is broken, then you should talk about the brokenness of the vessel, because it strengthens the message so much more, which is why even so when I go to illustrate certain things, I will very rarely tell you a story about how I got it right. I will try to find a story where someone else got it right and share that to celebrate them. But when the pastor is always the hero of every story, it tells the people in the congregation that you're like above them, and it gives them this idea like, oh, well, see, the pastor always does it right, but like I'm just a congregant. It's like, no. See, we're struggling through this thing together. I don't mind sharing that. Now, there is a level at which I'll go, I'm not going to share everything.
Correct.
I agree with what the old timers would say. You have to be able to hold influence in people's life as their preacher and as their pastor. Absolutely. So you can't share any and everything to where you would ever damage your credibility But sharing open and honestly about mistakes that you have made, things, times that you kind of blew it, what you're learning is not a bad thing whatsoever. And for the vast majority of people, that will endear them to what it is that you have to say so much more than drive them away. Some people want their pastor to glow in the dark and be Superman, not have any problems, never do anything wrong, always have it together, always says the right thing, never makes mistakes. And if that's I'm certain maybe you can find a pastor like that if that's what you're looking for. You can at the very least find a pastor that'll fake that for you, because there's still people that do that. I just think being open and honest and transparent is the key to you don't want to seem like the hero.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the pastor is not the hero. Jesus is the hero of the story. And so we need to lift him up high, not you on a pedestal. So it's not like if I was ever trying to make the point of giving to the poor or something like that.
Yeah.
I would not go, well, let me tell you what me and my family do. I just wouldn't do that. Even if me and my family were radically generous to the poor, I would not use that as an illustration.
Yeah.
Because all that's going to do is they're going to go, yeah, well, you're the pastor. That doesn't really illustrate it. What I want to do is find someone that's in their seat to highlight that story in a way that will bring it to life for them. Now, if I'm going to make a point about making a mistake, I'm not going to use you. I'm going to use me every single time. So the way they can understand this thing is a lot more level than what you think it is. And I think that's the key to good. The world that we live in right now is starving for authenticity. There's enough fakes. There's enough people acting like something that they're not. People just want to know that you are the real deal. Whether you have flaws and whether you're messed up and they just want to know, are you the real deal? Like, you don't have to have it all together, but are you really struggling through this life right alongside me like I think that you are? Or every time you tell a story, you get it right, and it's like it kind of discourages me because every time I do something, I get it wrong. Like, that's what you are inherently doing when you become – now, do I sometimes share? Yeah, sometimes I do. But you know how I always preface those stories? I'll say, I'm gonna tell a story right now, but I just got to let you know – I don't always get it right. More often than not, I might screw it up. But in this moment, I got it. So I will even tell people, if I'm going to be the hero of the story, I'm going to tell them it's not all the time.
Yeah.
I might even follow up a story of success right next to a story of failure. That way y'all can understand, like, yeah, sometimes you're going to get it right. Other times you're going to screw this thing up. Yeah. And it just is helpful for the people that are listening to go, that guy is just a real person. Like, there's nothing different about him just because he is the guy with the microphone. He still has struggles. He still has temptations. He still makes mistakes. He still has bad days. And there's a sense in which these buttoned-up pastors that every time you see them, they've got their suit on and they're like, it's like, oh, man, I bet that guy never does. It's like, I'll tell you right now, you can go ask. Those guys that people think don't have nothing wrong with them, they'll be the guy that goes home and kicks their dog, through a screen door. So I just, everybody that stands in a pulpit's got some sort of struggle.
Yep.
Not all of them will share it with you. And sure, there should be limits. It's like if you've got a story about murdering somebody, I might not lead with that one.
No, that's not a good way to grab people's attention.
But it's like if you got a speeding ticket or oh, you yelled at your kid. Okay, cool, me too. Like, so there has to be levels, and you can't make it out to look like, oh my gosh, dude, our pastor's a mess. No, it's not that. It's just, can you humanize yourself to where they go, oh, okay, he's walking this journey towards faithfulness just like us, gets it right a lot, messes it up some. Like, that's what you're trying to show people. So it's very important.
But it also shows that Jesus is still working in all of our lives too. And I think that, like having this understanding of like, hey, we're all in this together. Okay, if he's struggling with that and I struggle with that, then maybe there's something that God has placed on his heart that you're working through that I can go ask him about. Yeah.
And when you're the person with the microphone, you should feel obligated to help people feel feel seen in what they're going through.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've shared about my own personal anxiety that people have come up and go, I've put myself in counseling because you said that you were in counseling. Now there are people getting the help that they needed that were suffering silently until someone with a microphone stood up and went, hey, I struggle here too.
Yeah.
Now people are finding healing because of that.
It's the same thing with me. Like I share as often as I can of what God has done in my life with my addictions, and the encouragement that I have gotten to continue to share that from people that have said, hey man, this is something that I've gone through, and it's always in the back of my mind. And so I can sit down and have a conversation with them about what Jesus has done. I can't tell you how many of the Recovery Point ladies have come up and they've been, hey, I'm so encouraged by that. That's amazing that God has helped you stay sober for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like what was the key? Yeah. And look, it's Jesus, and it's going to be tough, but like if you have to stick with it and stick through it and put these disciplines in place, and Jesus is going to be there with you every step of the way. And it's going to be amazing whenever you get to these certain milestones and we can celebrate them and tell me about them so I can celebrate them with you and I can continue to pray for you.
Yeah, it'll make your communication stronger, but it will also help people. That's more important than whether or not you're an impressive communicator. Is like people are now in counseling and finding healing because someone finally told them, that's okay. Yeah. It's okay. Like, I struggle there too. I go to a counselor and they're like, I didn't even know that was an option until someone with a microphone said it. Yeah. And like what?
Well, there's been so much of these like kind of like taboo topics. Yeah. That people just stay away from. Like, we going back to the misuse of text, and they say, well, yes, the Bible does say to not worry and don't fear and, cast your cares on the Lord. But those are encouraging scriptures, but ultimately, like that's a Jesus thing that has to come in and like really, really do some work to be able to.
Yeah. The crazy thing in the Christian church is like, nobody's ever told anyone with, cancer to just have more faith. So I don't understand why we tell people that struggle with mental health disorders that, oh, man, you're sinning because you're struggling with anxiety. Yeah. It's craziness. I'm not talking about someone that's just, like, in the flesh worrying when they really don't need to be. Yeah. And it's leading to nonsense. I'm talking about there's people that really need help, that have been through some stuff, and the stuff that they've been through has altered the chemical balance in their brain, and their body has certain physical traumas that are related to certain topics and things that might happen. Like, those people need to go talk to someone and get that stuff unwound. Yeah. Just like we would if you got sick, you would go to a doctor. Like, I don't know why we messed all that up so bad in the church and just told people with mental health issues. But it's like there's people finding healing because of transparency and vulnerability, and that's what we need. And I will also acknowledge this. That's not going to be for everybody. Not everyone's going to like that. Not everyone's going to be able to handle that. And I'll caution if any of my ministry friends see this. I'll just tell you straight up. There will be people that will abuse you because of your vulnerability as well, that will use it against you. And you just have to decide that the amount of people that are finding help and hope and healing because your vulnerability is worth those few times where the enemy will attack you because you were vulnerable. Yeah. Don't let it scare you away from that, because your vulnerability, your story, and all of that is so much more powerful to what the kingdom is trying to do than these little attacks of the enemy that ultimately don't matter.
Yeah. It just popped in my head, and before we get to the next topic is this is somebody was recently just said, there's a scripture for every day of the year that says, don't fear and don't be afraid. I'm like, yeah, but how many of those were like angels appearing in front of people saying, hey, settle down for a second. I got something from the Lord.
I always want to just tell people, that's very contingent on the English translation of the Bible. Like, just,
like how many angels told, Mary was freaking out, hey, don't be afraid. but you're about to have a baby.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you the rest of that day was very anxiety driven for her.
Oh, more than just a day. I mean, that's the type of news that changed their life.
Yeah. I mean, the angel of the Lord appeared and said, "Hey, don't freak out. Don't be afraid."
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that would weird me out. Maybe that's why that's probably why I wasn't born in the Old Testament times. The Lord sent some angels to talk to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just found that extremely funny. All right. Another thing that you sent that you wanted to chat about is not making the audience care first.
Yeah, this is such a sticking point for me. And I'd say that this is where the vast majority of communicators miss every time that they get the chance to communicate. And it's kind of like a good example of this would be
opening statements.
Sort of, but let me.
Sorry,
we're both married, and my wife loves to talk, and as you walk into, I do all my talking in front of a microphone. Like I'm not. I have to lead a staff here, so I have to talk to y'all all week long. I preach on Sundays. I teach in different areas. I do these podcasts. I do all my talking in front of a microphone for the most part. So I'm not the most conversational person. I'm not saying I don't talk to my wife. We have a fantastic relationship. But I'm just saying there's sometimes that she wants to tell me something that she will just jump into it, and I do not care at all. And so, therefore, I am smiling and nodding and thinking about something else.
I've been there.
Yeah.
And then you wake up.
Our kids do the same thing. When I know my kids are about to just say something that has nothing to do with anything, I'm going, yeah.
Let me ask you this. How many times have you woken up that day and she goes, "Hey, are you ready to go do this?" And you're like, "Ready to go do what?"
Yeah, what?
We've talked about it 3 times.
And I go, what would happen is if she really wanted to get whatever it was that she was trying to say across, she would have to find some way to get my attention, to care on the front end, and then I would get, because there's sometimes that she'll do that. There will be some sort of tension point that will get me to lean in, and then she can sit there and talk, and I'm engaged.
Yeah.
Because, whoa, wait a second. What was that phone call about? What was that? I want to know. And sit there and talk to me for an hour because I asked. I was interested.
Yeah.
It's different than just, hey, let me tell you a story. Oh, gosh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Right? She didn't make me care on the front end. The times that she makes me care on the front end, she can sit there and talk about nonsense for an hour, but she made me care first. I'll be with her. This is what happens a lot of times in communication, especially in preaching, is most people just try to jump right into solving problems that they haven't even created a problem for their audience yet to want to be solved. Yeah. That audience member, like if you start your sermon with, hey, today we're in 1 Samuel chapter 27, go ahead and turn your Bible there, and then just start reading, you will get your really, really hard-nosed, committed Christians to go with you, and everyone else, and I'm talking that as a very small minority in any church. Everyone else is going to go, they are out. You just jumped right in, and it's like, what are we doing? Where are we headed? This happens all the time when my kids get in the car. You know, the first thing that they say, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? Because they want to know. Nobody wants to be taken for a trip that they don't know where they're going. It freaks them out.
Yeah. So
when you're teaching, if you do not make them care before you get to that one thing that you're supposed to share with them, then they're going to miss it. So you're going to do all that work of communication for no return whatsoever. And so the technical terminology of this is you have to build tension with your audience. And again, you can go watch plenty of bad preaching anywhere and find out that most people skip this. They might have an introduction of some sort, which we'll talk about intros and stuff next week. They might have some sort of intro. But if at the end, between the intro and the meat, and like the Bible part, if there's not a part right here that builds tension in the life and the heart of the listener, they will not lean in to listen to what it is that you have to say. So you have to actively build tension So I'm trying to think this past weekend. So I'm telling this story about being high school baseball. I made 7 errors the first 7 games, and I had to come to grips with who I really was in that moment. I had to see the bad before I could see the good. Now, I could have just went, all right, I'll tell that story, all right, let's jump into the Bible. No, rather what I'm going to do is I'm going to now flip that scenario onto my audience, and I'm going to go, but what about you? Like, have you ever, like, had to come face to face with who you really are? Like, and what I'm trying to do is get people to lean in and go, oh, man, yeah, sometimes I do have to get the bad news to get to the good news, and I'm trying to get them to care about what I'm about to say before I go and say it. So that way, by the time I get to the text and I'm going to tell them what it is that God told me to tell them from the text, they are now fully leaned in and go, I need an answer. Okay, I've been there before. I know what you're talking about, Pastor. I've been there where, like, I don't like what I see, and so I need to see who I really am. Like, I'm there. Give me the answer. Yeah. And then I get to what you do is you build the tension to where they're like, okay, I gotta have the answer to this. This makes me care. And then what you're going to do in the Bible is then release the tension, giving them the answer. So Sunday it was, you need to come face to face with who you really are. You need to face that. My guess is you put yourself in the hero position all the time. Remember that was the tension point? And then I get all the way to the end when I'm ready to relieve the tension. I go, here's the big idea that's going to relieve the tension. You're Saul. That's who you are.
Yeah.
That's who I am. And that relieves so you go, oh, that's the answer. I've been putting myself in the wrong position the whole time. So I built tension here, released the tension with the text with this one idea, you are Saul. Now all of a sudden they were leaned in, I need to hear an answer to this, and then they got the answer. It ties everything together, and it makes everything make sense. But most people, like if they were they might tell that story about facing some hard truths, and they're like, well, today in our story, David's going to face some hard truths. And you go, that's not getting anyone to lean in.
No, you pull out your phone and you start doom scrolling.
You go, what is on Facebook now?
Yeah.
But when you go, how about you? You've been there, right? And it's just these, it's not a long part of it's just turn it around on them. Have you been there? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because if so, then I imagine you want to come on this journey with me.
Yeah.
And that's why that tension point, it can't be specific to one group of people or else everyone in the room can't come with you. Like if I start building tension around being a foster dad.
Yeah.
You're the only person that can come with me, you and like 4 other people in this church.
Yeah.
So I can't make the tension point specific to just one demographic. It has to be universal. That's why like when I'm teaching people to teach here, I'll see their tension point. It'll be real narrow. I'll be like, okay, no. Now spread it out. Hit the parents. Hit the singles. Hit the people that don't even believe. Hit the construction worker. Hit the lawyer. Hit the wealthy. Hit the not wealthy. Make sure you widen that net, because as you widen the net of the tension by giving these different examples and hitting these different questions, all you're doing is scooping more people into the net to take on the journey with you.
Yep.
So you have to widen that net before you get going. If you blow past this part, you might nail the text part and the one point, but no one will get it because no one took the trip with you.
Yeah.
You ended up at the end all by yourself because you got a hook. It's like, if you want to stay with the fishing analogy I've been using, if you don't set the hook before you reel it in, you're going to come back with no fish on it.
Yep.
And that's what's happening in the tension point. You have to set the hook to get them bought into what you're saying. Make them care.
Yeah.
Make them need an answer. And then once they, in their heart, I got to have this answer, they will stay with you.
Oh, yeah.
And you will do all of that work, and you will actually get the return that you're looking for. So build tension on the front end. So, like, silly example, if I want my wife to listen to a story about what happened at work today, I don't just start telling the story. I might go home and go, dude, listen, Jared got so mad today. And she'll go, I'll watch. She'll go, really, what happened? Because if I just went home and started
I was
going
purring in his microphone.
Yeah. If I just went home and go, man, we were doing the extra point today, and I was purring in the microphone like I do every Monday, Jared was so mad. She's like, yeah, I don't care. But if I come home and I go, dude, Jared got so mad today. If I start with that, now that built tension and interest in her, she goes, I gotta know the story.
Yeah.
If I flip it the other way, she doesn't give a crap about the story.
Yeah.
Like, you go home right now and you go, like I did this with my kids this morning. I got in the car, and for whatever reason, I wanted to tell a really stupid joke, and I know it's a really stupid joke, but I wanted them to care about it, so I got in the car and said, hey, guys, in school, have they ever told you all the story about Jesus and why he was not allowed in the jewelry stores in Jerusalem? So, like, I'm telling it in a way that's building, because they're thinking, like, oh, my gosh, did I miss something in the Bible?
Yeah, I've heard that story.
And they're like, no, we've never heard that. Are you going to use that for chapel next week? Because I'm speaking at their chapel. I said, no. I said, yeah, but you guys, they haven't taught y'all that in school? They're like, no. I said, well, Jesus wasn't allowed in the jewelry stores in Jerusalem. So every time he went in there, he was breaking every chain. It was like, I got them to lean in first by going, hey, has your school not taught you this?
Yeah.
Is there a story in the Bible we don't know? What is the story about Jesus in the jewelry stores?
Yeah.
And because I wanted to tell a stupid dad joke, I got them to lean in and care about it before I gave it to them.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, you'll find application all over. If you want to send an email, you want it's going to be maybe a little bit long. Don't just jump right into it. How about in the first paragraph you go, do you have problems with this? Do you have problems with this? Do you have problems with this? Would you like to figure out how to fix it? Boom. Now they will read the email.
You should probably lead with the jewelry Jesus joke, though.
Or like, you guys,
I'm just teasing.
You watch TV and you'll see commercials. They'll say, have problems, doing this. Have problems. And you're going, yes, I do.
Do you have achy joints and pains? Like, this is the pill that you need.
We don't even notice that this is what they're doing to us. They're building tension and sparking our interest, going, I do have that.
Oh, my joints have been hurting.
And now I will sit here and listen to your, pharmaceutical sales pitch to me in between the football games because you asked me if I have achy joints, and I do have achy joints, and I would love to know if there's a way to not have achy joints. This is what you have to do when you're communicating. Get people to care, give them a little bit of tension, and then just resolve the tension for them with whatever it is that you're trying to tell them.
Yeah. They always lose me, though, with the side effects, though. Right. That's a bad communication strategy because they're like, you could throw up and or die, and I'm like, I'm not taking that pill.
I got prescribed something when I went to the doctor a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I think I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not much of a medicine person.
Yeah.
I don't take pills. Every time I get a prescription, I normally don't pick it up. And I got the text, hey, this is ready. And I clicked on it, and it took me to the page that would, like, find out more about this medicine. And I looked at the side effects, and I was like, bro, it's not even that serious. I'm not putting my life on the line for this issue. Like, it's not even that serious of a thing. Like, I'll try something else. I'm not going to do that. Those side effects were crazy.
You're like, dude, I don't have time to be throwing up all day, guys. Like, why are you give me this pill that's going to make me throw up?
I'm not doing that. No, thank you. All right, I got two more quick. I'm gonna hit these last two really, really quick.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm long-winded because when it comes to communication, I'm incredibly passionate about it. Is this number 5? Yeah, number 5, not adding color. Yeah. Here's what I mean by that. If you do not illustrate, use props, or anything at your disposal to bring what you're saying to life, you are missing an opportunity. Because what I have found is even though I try to simplify a sermon as much as I can down to 1.1 text, people will inevitably resonate more with my illustrations and stories than they will the thing. They will remember the story, which will then drive them to remember what it was that they were supposed to get from the story. Mm-hmm. They'll remember that so much more than some of the stuff that I say. And so if you're not illustrating, telling stories, I was at a pastor's retreat about 3 years ago. There was an expert on communication there, and he was doing feedback for our sermons. He would watch it and give us feedback. He said any good sermon should have 6 to 11 personal stories every single week. any good sermon. 6 to 11 stories that you're telling, because people resonate so much more with stories than anything else. I can even tell the difference. Whenever I launch into a story in the middle of my sermon, people are leaned in more than any other point in the sermon because they want to hear the story, whether it's a funny story, a sad story, I screwed something up, I got something right, whatever it is, people care. So you have to add color. Like, it's lazy communication to lay out a beautiful exposition of the text and then just let it sit there in black and white. Color that thing in with everything. If you can bring a prop, bring a prop. If you can use a video, if you can bring somebody on stage, that's what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm bringing somebody on stage to tell a story about what I'm talking about.
Yeah, one of your most memorable sermons was the reset. And you talked about the reset button on the Nintendo, and talking about like what Jesus had done for us, and his death and his resurrection was the reset for all of mankind.
Yeah.
And so like
we had a gigantic reset button on stage.
Yes. And so like I'm a retro gamer. So anytime I'm telling you, every single time I've looked at my Nintendo, that pops in my head. I'm like, this is Scott's message. There it is.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Well, I used my Winnie the Pooh that my grandmother got me for Good Friday 2 years ago, and I've heard from people. They go, I can't not look at Winnie the Pooh and remember that the cross is God's message to us that he loves us. Like they hit those symbols so hard if you'll do it, but most people think, oh, no, that's how youth pastors teach, is with props and dramas and stuff like that. It's like, no. When I stopped, when I started to think more like a youth pastor in my communication, I'll bring people up on stage for opening illustrations. I had one sermon one time where I was teaching about David and Bathsheba and that whole thing where he kills Uriah and everything. But the point that I had for that week, even though you can get about 1,000 things from that story, my point was, don't make decisions that other people will have to pay for. I said, because sometimes we think that the decisions that we're making, the problems that we're causing, are only affecting a couple of people, and you don't realize how far-reaching. So I preached that whole story, and every time there was a new character introduced, I brought somebody up on stage. They had to stay there the whole sermon. Yeah. So by the end of it, I have this whole group of people up on stage with me while I'm teaching, so I can go, do you now understand? It's not just David didn't just hurt him. Look at all the people that he brought into his mess. And when you make choices like that you think are just affecting you, you are impacting so many more people. And you look up, you have this visual, you go, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
Right? So make sure you add color. Let me give you the final thing, and that's watching your confusing structure and message. And this is something me and you personally worked on. Yeah. Was whatever that one thing is, and I'm going to do this quick since we already talked about the one thing. Whatever the one thing is that God told you to say, make sure the whole sermon is in support of that one thing. Yep. So if the one thing is you need to see yourself accurately, which is essentially what this past weekend was. The introduction had to be see yourself accurately. Yeah. I tell a story about I needed to see myself accurately. The text, then I get to this point, see yourself accurately. When I land the plane on the other end, I can't come up with a different application. I can't go, all right, and when you see yourself accurately, now you're going to pray more. Yeah. Right? That would have been wild if I did that. Yeah. It's not in the text, but people do this. Yeah. People will get to the end because they don't know they didn't think through landing the plane. They go, no, you already landed the plane. See yourself accurately, and when you see yourself accurately, boom. Everything has to flow from that one thing. You cannot start off with I'm going to talk about this. Yeah. And then my main point is this, but there's totally different. Then I'm going to land the plane over here, and it's totally different. And people do this all the time. It's like, no. Let there be one string that starts with the one thing and flows through your intro, through your tension, through your text, through your application, through your conclusion. One string that pulls everything together. So the way everything that is said and done in that one talk is all in service of the one thing. That way they will walk away with that one thing that they need. Yeah. And so it's like, because what will happen is sometimes people have an introduction that gets them to the first part of their text, and then they forget, well, the first part of the text isn't actually where we're headed.
Yeah.
So they had an introduction about something that's not here, and then when they try to get here, now they're way off track because they put something here that didn't make sense with everything else where they were trying to drive.
Yeah, that's like one of the things that I was thinking about. It's like, have you ever taken a road trip and everything's gone smooth because you've stayed where you needed to stay, but you get close to your destination and you take a wrong exit.
Yep.
And then everything is confusing for you because then your phone starts going, hey, no, you need to turn right. No, you need to turn back around. You need to do this. And then you get lost. And then you've added so much extra to your trip that
I've sat in sermons where this has happened.
Yeah.
Where it'll be the intro will be great, the tension point will be great, they're in the right text, and then at some point in the text they will take off in a totally different direction, and I'll go, no, you were doing it. Why are we going over here and chasing squirrels? Why, you were doing it, and then there'll be 30 minutes in the wrong direction, then they'll try to land the plane back where they started, and you go, no, see, what happened was you took a detour, and when you took that detour, all of us took the next exit and got off.
Yeah.
Because you can't go out here. Like, if you're a regular communicator at a church, and I have to say this because I assume everyone that listens to this, for the most part, goes to Southridge, and you go, well, wait a second. Scott said you're not supposed to do that. I'll give you some exceptions. If you're the regular communicator at a church and you want to randomly just talk about something that's a little off topic, your congregation will allow you to do that. They'll stay with you. If you're not the regular communicator, you should never do this, ever. If I go to a guest church, I'm not like, if we get close to like a topic that I'm passionate about and I go to a guest church, but it's not my one thing, that's not my church. I'm not going to make a mess with that guy.
Yeah.
If it's here, I get more leniency. I can preach longer here than other people. And it's not, well, because he's no. It's just because I'm the regular speaker. People are used to my voice. They're used to what I do. They'll stay with me. So I even tell our associate pastors when they're preaching, I'm like, you need to aim for under 30 minutes. The people will love you if you will get under 30 minutes because you get out early whenever you preach.
Yeah.
And they will love that. And it will make you a more effective communicator. When you get up there in the pinch hit, don't take them long. They're going to hate you for taking them long. Take them short. They're going to go, man, I like whenever he's up there. I like whenever she's up there because we know we're going to get to lunch before the Baptist.
Yeah.
Like they like just it's like it's so important. Like, so there are exceptions to all of this. Like, I wouldn't have just one thing most likely if I was going to teach a class on organizational leadership.
Correct.
Right? That's a different thing.
Yeah.
So there's always nuance, but just you got to make sure that the one thing drives everything else. So that's kind of the mistakes I see people making in communication, and some of the ways that I think that you can become a better communicator.
Yeah. Just put that anywhere, old Jared. Anyways. If you could visit any religious landmark or pilgrimage site, where would you go and why? That's the mystery meat question for this
is a tough one for me because I don't really like mess with religious land site, or what'd you say?
Landmarks.
Landmark land sites. Gosh, it is late in the day. Landmarks and stuff like that, just because.
Or pilgrimage site.
Yeah, because I just don't jive with stuff like that because I think it's not the point of the Bible. But either way, I do want to go to what they consider quote unquote the Holy Land. Yeah. I don't like to call it that because people are holy, land is not holy. That's kind of what Jesus did. It's a little theological issue for me. However, I would like to go just because I think it would be super cool to put sight to the stories that you see.
Correct.
I've heard that it's incredible. My only issue is I don't like to fly. Yeah. And I know that would be a heck of a flight. And I'm so sensitive about food. I'm always afraid if I travel to very exotic of places, I'm going to offend people.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Jerusalem, and maybe not right now, but maybe at some point in the future. That would probably be my thing, even though I don't consider it to be the Holy Land. I think all of God's creation is holy. That's kind of the point of the New Testament. But I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Thanks for
someone's gonna get mad at me for that.
Interject. It's all right. Just message Scott. He'll set up a lunch and y'all can go yell at each other.
We can go toe to toe for that. But yeah, it's just. But I would love to because I've heard people go and they're like you can still go see some of these you can go to Ephesus and like that stuff would be cool to me just because I am kind of a nerd when it comes to the Bible and Bible facts and I would love to see the places. I'm not convinced I would ever like to make that flight.
Yeah. I'm convinced of it. Just because of everything that I've read and studied, the only thing that you can get it on your computer screen, but in your Bible is just this cartoon map that's the blue water and then the yellow land and
I would love to do it. I just have never it's always been the food and the flight that worries me.
So one of the cool things that I heard about whenever you do visit there, because I've talked to many people that have gone, is that still to this day, people use oil lamps. So they have been passed down through family members, generations, grandparents. Whenever they die, they give it to their kids and so on and so forth. And some of these oil lamps that are still in use are thousands of years old.
Wow.
So I just think it's cool that lamp could have been lit at a time that Jesus put his eyes on that little fire that's burning out of it.
That's cool. The whole area would be so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. The first thing that came to my mind was I'd love to go to the empty tomb.
Yeah.
If they could decide which one was the actual empty tomb.
I don't think it's the one with all the jewels and stuff all over it.
Because if you don't know, there's two different ones. And actually, they don't even know for certain that either one of them is actually
but one's bedazzled.
That's how empty. That's seriously. This is so funny, and it cracks me up that people argue about this. But that's how empty Jesus' tomb is.
Yeah,
is they currently have two of them that it might be, and they don't even know that it's 100% certain either of those.
Yeah.
That's how empty this brother's tomb is. They've never known where it was after the morning of the resurrection. The body's not there. It's clear it's not here, and then they just throughout history, something that important they just lost track of. Yeah, because that dude's not in there.
Yeah,
it was more important. The Jewish people would have commemorated places like that. Yeah. They would have the early Christians. If his body was still in there, to this day you would know where it was. To this day, it would be decorated and all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's nowhere. That's how empty that dude left that tomb. It's amazing. So if we knew exactly which one it was, I would love if I could introduce the supernatural to the question. I'd go, if the Lord would just take me to where it actually was, that would be dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to go to Jerusalem and the Middle East and see all the sites that you read about. I think that would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we appreciate y'all sticking with us. We hope that y'all have enjoyed this talk. Next week, we're going to wrap up our discussion on effective communication. But and then the following week, we have a really cool surprise. So you want to tune in for that week.
Yeah.
We've got somebody that's not on staff that's going to be on the potluck. So, but it'll be a first for us and something that we for sure try to open that door to more opportunities because we are not the only pastors in this area. We would love to talk to all pastors and introduce them to the mystery meat questions. We got to set them up though with we need to hit everybody with is the soup cereal conversation and just see the looks on their face. All righty, y'all have a good weekend. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.